Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I'm pretty excited. We got a couple things we're going to touch on. We're going to show you what could be the new Season 2 map that was shared. I actually was initially shared this by a friend, or I should say I don't even say coworker, but a friendly player that ended up getting it sent to him by someone who is from the Indonesia region. So we're going to show that off. There's a couple things I'm going to talk about the map as well. So we're going to kind of we'll do overview. We'll talk about kind of maybe potentially best starting locations. And we'll talk about the interesting part about the layout and why I actually really love it. Number two, we're also going to be talking about kingdoms getting their potential Season 2 summaries. And we'll share with you who those are right now, along with giving you a couple responses from CoD CS that we reached out to CoD CS about to try and see if we could figure out which kingdoms are going to be going into the Season 2 pool. The answer we got from CoD CS is interesting because it could lead to a few things. So again, stay tuned for that. Those are the three things we're going to cover. Let's start off right now with unveiling, or at least showing you what could be the Season 2 map. So this one, as we do a little switcheroony here, this is what it looks like. Now, there is really a lot to unpack here. I'm going to try and... Okay, cool. There we go. I'm just trying to give you guys as much of a zoomed in overview as we can. So, this was what was shared, and I want to say that... So, there's 4 starting regions, very similar to the S1 Plus map. You have Krauzon, Enagad, Sclera, and Orion. Now, a few things that stand out here. Let's first talk about the overall map, right? How many regions there? So you have the 4 starting. You have 1 up here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, right? So you have 8 additional regions. Now, if again, that's a lot because you have to think about, you have your, well, it's 8 plus 4, that's 12. You have 7 on the outside, 3, that's 10, and then 11. So you actually have 1 additional region on this potential S2 map compared to what you have on S1 Plus, right? And S1. Because you have the 7 outside Zone 1 regions, you have the 3 Zone 2, and then the 1 Zone 3. However, here you're getting an additional region, but now let's touch on the layout of it, right? Which is interesting because it actually almost feels as though it's a pyramid to me, right? Compared to the traditional kind of circular format that we usually see with KVK or kind of merged kingdom maps. Instead of us getting a pure circle, you're kind of getting this thing where it is curved, right? So it's kind of like this, but then you're kind of pushing upwards and inwards, so to speak, very similar to a pyramid. So if you think about this, right, you could argue, it's interesting on how they're going to do this, because you could make the argument that Zone 3 could be here, right, top middle. It is circular. You can see that almost every single, and again, we're going to touch on this in a moment, but again, right, this is kind of where it leads, right? So if you end up taking this region, it goes there. This region up here, it goes there. One of these in the middle, it goes there. So you can kind of see that the layout is converging into this top middle circular. However, there are a few regions here that I want to point out because to me, this is very interesting, right? So very similarly to the S1 Plus map, if you remember, the S1 Plus map, right, you could start off in Zoland, Burning Land, Sophrostia, and Darlin. Now, you also have the 3 neutral regions that players, alliances, and kingdoms that start out in one of these regions can converge into in battle, right? That being Nivola, Khaltia, and Forgotten Lands. If you look at the layout here, right, again, this is why there's really a lot to dissect here, which to me is fascinating. So let's look at the areas that do not have direct access to what could be the potential final zone. You have this area just east of Krauzon, right, that if you look at the border, there's nothing that connects going in here, right, to where you'd have a pass. Same thing here, this area, right, so you can say this is Krauzon between and Enagad. Then you have Enagad, and you have Sclera. Then, if you go here, you have Sclera and Arion right here. So I'm almost wondering if this is their kind of adaptive take on the S1 Plus or on their Season 2 Zone 1 neutral regions, right? Where maybe these ones will open up first, you kind of fight it out, and then what happens is from here, you can then go into maybe one of these other regions, right? But maybe you have to go into one of these regions from this region. Like maybe they'll do it similarly with the level 4 passes that they added into S1 Plus, where, for example, maybe if you're going to go here like Krause into this northern region, this is a level 4 pass. Maybe same thing here. Maybe there's a level 4 pass here, right? So that could be something, or maybe they don't do it that way and they just allow for you to go into these kind of neutral Zone 1 fighting areas first, and then and then just allowing for you to fight it out a little beforehand, but they're still going to allow you, maybe they give you one pass in these. So it is interesting because I almost wonder if this is kind of the first opening, and then these ones that connect. So it would be this top, this middle, and then the top here, right? So you'd have 3 of the regions could be neutrals, and then 4 of these Zone 2 regions, or maybe you consider that Zone 3, and then this would be Zone 4. But then you have those 4 regions that do directly go into Zone 3. So I just want to point out that I love, and again, I understand that some people like the symmetricalness, or like they like things to be very even and balanced, but I'm going to tell you right now, I absolutely love the direction that Call of Dragons is going with these asymmetrical maps. So I'm such a huge fan. I love that it's different. I really like how I kind of get this Lord of the Rings feel as well when I look at the maps, especially with S1 and S1 Plus, and now kind of going into what could be the Season 2 map. This to me is absolutely fascinating. I love how they're almost trying to do things differently. Even if you look at S1 Plus, right, the map isn't symmetrical. And then you look at this, what could be the Season 2 map, and this map is even more asymmetrical than the Season 1 and Season 1 Plus map is. And I like how with the Season 1 and 1 Plus map, they kind of took this circular approach, but now they're kind of taking this pyramid approach to Season 2. So to me, I absolutely love that they are doing these types of things in this game, and we're really pushing the boundaries of just kind of, I don't want to say getting away from, but just doing more than, right? Being able to offer more to the community. So for me, as a player, as a content creator, as someone who just appreciates and enjoys Call of Dragons, this to me is such a huge welcome. Okay, now let's talk about kind of starting locations, right? So this is the last thing here, and then we'll move on to the next pieces. When you're thinking about potentially best starting locations, usually, and this is something that we talk about with Forgotten Lands, and we talk about this with Nivola as well, is that for Season 1 specifically, is that when you're thinking about these, the reason why those 2 regions are a little bit more attractive is because they have a lot more flexibility. You have more paths that you can take there by specifically being access to multiple regions compared to some of the other starting zone regions. And we're talking about Zone 2 and beyond. So if you're trying to think about that here, right, you can make the argument that something like Enigad and Sclera could be more favorable. We'll say that because you have access to 3 regions plus the 2 adjacents, right, for if and when those passes might open. So you could say that you have 3 plus 2. Sclera, same thing. You have 3 plus 2 on either side, right? If you think about Krausen, you technically have access to 2 plus 1, right? Same thing on Orion. You have 2, 1, 2, plus 1 on the side. So you have a little bit more flexibility, right, with being able to kind of pick and choose. However, you also have to understand that if you're in the middle, you have the chance to get pincered, right, or flanked from multiple sides. If you're Enigad, you could get flanked from Krausen and Sclera. Same thing if you're Sclera, you can get Enigad and Orion. So, obviously starting locations have their pros and cons because you have to kind of think about not just the immediate, but what could be the long-term down the road, right? But again, we'll have to see what happens if maybe we're able to get some access and maybe some other images before. Otherwise, we'll just wait until the update drops and we're able to take a little bit more of a closer look into Season 2 and kind of see how the map looks once we're able to get our hands on it. Alrighty, let's move on to the next piece, which is the kingdoms that are getting their summaries. So, at the moment, there are 3 merge kingdoms that have already got their season summaries, as far as where we know the actual date that we're going to figure some things, or we could, let me say that, we could figure some things out at the earliest. So what those are is SSS 1-6, right, which is where we're at now. This is comprised of 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. And then you have SSS 1-7 and then -8, right? So those are the groups right now that are on this timer, where you have the summary, you have the season details, which we'll find out here in less than 2 days, bearing in mind that the update is going to drop on the 31st. So you'll figure out potentially what could be, right, who the matchup is going to be, right, once the season details are hit. Or maybe they'll delay this, maybe they push it another day or two, maybe it'll just give us the actual date that we'll be figuring out. Maybe they'll push the date or something like that. So we'll have to wait and see. But those are the 3 kingdoms right now that are on the same timeline for their dates. So it will be interesting. Now, let me touch on what I heard from CoD CS. So, and I'll just kind of show you the conversation that I had with CoD CS, just because I mean, there's nothing really harmful at all, but I do think it illuminated a couple things here, right? So if we're looking at the conversation, I started off by asking a question for you in the upcoming Season 2. Will all the S1 Plus kingdoms be in a kingdom pool in which matchmaking will create groups from? Or if not, which S1 Plus kingdoms will be in the pool for Season 2, i.e. S1-6 through 28 being S1 Plus kingdoms will be in the same pool and then redistributed via matchmaking for Season 2? And then I ended up getting an answer. They said all servers in S1 Plus are matched in the same pool. Now, this is pretty massive from what was initially said. The reason I say that is because, right, we'll keep reading, is because of all of the kingdoms in S1 Plus. You're talking as of the response happening yesterday for me, is that you technically would have kingdoms, one up to 154, right? So 1 through 154, those kingdoms are already in S1 Plus. You have 155 through 173. They're the next big group that's going in. But you could say, as of yesterday, that those 154 kingdoms would have all been going into Season 2. That's why I just thought that was a lot. Not to say that it wouldn't have been cool for that to happen, but you have to understand that some of the newer kingdoms, right, the ones that are kind of 100 plus, aren't necessarily fully at the end of their S1 Plus seasons yet. And then I ended up asking this, so I said, I see and thank you for that. Also mentioned in a post that all kingdoms which will end their current season will go into Season 2. Are you able to provide a range of kingdoms, such as kingdoms 1 to 100 will go into Season 2 and could get massive against each other? They say no such data is currently available. Servers in Season 1 Plus and servers in Season 1 will not be matched together, right? So that's actually good news, which makes you wonder, does that follow along with what they were saying before, which is that the kingdoms in S1 will just immediately go into S2, but they'll have their own kind of separate pool? And then we asked again, so currently kingdoms 1 through 154 are in S1 Plus, right, which is what I just mentioned. Spread out in merged kingdoms SSS 1-6 through SSS 1-38. Does this mean that those kingdoms will be in the same pool for matchmaking going into Season 2, where any kingdoms in 1 through 154 could get matched up against each other? Right? We're trying to define a pool range. Or are you saying that S1 Plus kingdoms that are already close to ending their season? If so, then would it be kingdoms 1 through 190, because those kingdoms are already closer to ending their S1 Plus seasons than the ones above that, or newer than that, we should say, right? Which is SSS 1-6 through 24. That would be in the season pool. And then they said, sorry, the scope of server merging is for all servers that will enter the new season. This depends on the status of each server at the time of the match. And they say there's no way to determine that. And then I asked again about these 3, right? Because those already have details. And then they say there's no such data. So based on this response, it could be either or. However, if I was a betting man, I would say that this is leaning more, not necessarily guaranteed, but leaning more in the direction of probably kingdoms 1 through 90 having a higher chance of going in, if you're just talking about kingdoms that are going to be closer to their Season 1 Plus ending by the time the new update drops, you could say that those kingdoms have a higher percentage chance of probably being a bigger kingdom pool. But again, I'll monitor. I'll, of course, be keeping up to date on my accounts. And the moment that we get some more information, we'll definitely let you all know. And I will also be doing a big KVK Season 2 pool matchmaking data collection to show you all the top stats, very similar to what we did for Kingdom 27 through 90. This will probably be even a bigger haul that we'll do. Again, it will be a little more difficult because we obviously don't have the ability yet to still view individual kingdom leaderboards, so we'll probably just have to go off merge kingdom stats, but we'll at least be able to show you as much as possible. And I have some ideas on maybe how I can kind of work that into where it's a little more accurate and clear, but we'll see kind of when that time comes around. However, that's where I'm going to end. I would love to know your guys' thoughts. What did you think about any of the three things that I talked about? And also, which kingdoms do you think are going to be in the Season 2 pool? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.